And we're live! Welcome anybody watching us out there in the big wide world. It's Land Down Under Hangout, and tonight we're talking about our series read. We're on the second hangout for that, and we're reading we read Harry Potter and the Order of... Oh my god.
The Goblet of Fire.
Goblet of Fire, that one, number 4. In case there's any confusion and you don't happen to know the books. Oh my god, what are you doing watching this? Go away, there will be spoilers. And you've been warned now, so okay. So last time we started off just checking if anybody had any stories about their editions that they wanted to share.
No, not that I think of.
Mine's just a regular paperback, nothing special. I mean, I've loved it to death, but and the pages are all yellow now, but nothing special.
Oh yeah.
Just had it forever.
Mm.
And it has that it kind of smells like potpourri, which pretty much means that it lived in my mum's room for a little while.
Mine smells like the perfect level of book. You know, some books, they get old and it's just a bit too intense. But when they're new, they don't really have the scent. This one's just that perfect level. Smells so good.
Actually, mine's about there too.
Yeah. Well, yours is, I'm assuming yours is probably the same edition as mine.
The hardcover?
The hardcover came when it first came out?
Yeah.
Yep. So it's probably the same age then.
And it's got, I'll cover up personal details, but it's actually got my book plate still in it, and my home phone number is written in there, and then I've crossed it out and written my mobile number when I got my first mobile.
That's so cute.
I love it.
But I obviously haven't changed my details now that I'm married because it still has my maiden name on there.
It's actually the oldest of all my Harry Potter books because I got rid of the paperback ones and replaced them with hardback, so they all matched. So this one is the first one that I actually got in hardback because that's when this one came out, is when I started reading the series. So this one is actually the oldest of my set, which makes it special because it's been to Japan with me.
I think mine have been many, many places with me. Home, school, every relatives.
I actually think it also makes it the most reread as well because waiting for the 5th book was the longest wait, and I reread the series so many times during that period of time. All 4 books of it.
I think I probably reread it the most in that time period as well, actually.
There was something desperate about waiting for the 5th one.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And by the time the 5th, 6th, and 7th came out, I was in the middle of high school, so I sort of couldn't reread them as much as I had the first 4.
Mm. Well, that didn't stop me. I was in my first full-time job, and I just reread and reread and reread. But I was also
I had English books that I had to read.
Fair enough.
Because I took advanced English every year, so we had a lot more reading than the other kids.
Yeah, actually, it's a fair point because I was in Japan and I took a limited number of books with me because it was before Kindle had exploded or possibly even existed, and so I had what I had, and I took a few selection ones, and Harry Potter was one of the ones that I took the 4 Harry Potter books. Sorry?
It made the cut.
It made the cut, yes. Yes, it did, along with a few Jane Austen and a couple other books like that. I bought lots of books while I was over there, but these ones were the ones that got reread the most. In fact, I think Harry Potter might be the single most reread book I have in my collection, apart from Pride and Prejudice.
There's not even a contest for that. I don't think any other book touches how much I've reread the Harry Potter books. Especially the first 2.
Sense. Yeah.
I don't think I've reread anything else other than, I've reread Harry Potter, all of the books, at least 5 or 6 times.
Mm.
Probably more. This first one, probably the most. But
see, I find it really funny when you say that 5 or 6 times because I'm I would have done it 5 or 6 times in a year.
Yeah. I'm thinking like around the 20 mark for the first one.
Yeah.
And obviously they go down from there.
I think maybe I'm just underestimating myself.
That might be fair. That might be cool. I'm good with that. I'm good with that's it. Because I'm sort of like, either I've read it an awful lot or people are underestimating.
No, because, see, I've read it at least once every year since I finished high school, and that's at least 10 times.
Yeah.
Plus the amount of times I reread it while I was still in school. So, yeah, no, I'm really just underestimating myself. I'm very sorry.
That's good. I'm not alone, and I don't feel bad about myself anymore. Excellent.
Karina and I were... Yeah, well, Karina and I were talking about last night how we were rating things on Goodreads and how something got a 5, and I'm like, the way a book gets a 5-star book rating is if it's a book that I will reread over and over again.
Pretty much, yeah. It's got that it factor that makes it so wonderful. It's not even that it's perfect, it's just that it is so exactly what you love.
Yeah. Like, I know all the books that I love rereading aren't the, like, most spectacular books that have ever existed. But I love rereading them because it's a story that I enjoy. And that's why they get 5 stars.
I would agree with that entirely. Like, if I give something a 4 stars, that means I really enjoyed it. It was fantastic. That was a beautifully written book. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to reread it, though. So,
but I feel like there are some 5 stars that I have that I won't necessarily reread just because maybe the subject matter isn't something that's easily picked up again.
That's a fair call, too. And I've got 5 stars that I haven't reread yet, but I do intend to.
Yeah, that's true too.
Because I think that's the difference as well. Like, a 5-star to me means that I loved it so much that even if I haven't reread it yet, there's a pretty good chance. Like, I've got one book upstairs. I actually borrowed it from the library when I read it and enjoyed it so much. I bought a copy of it. I've had it for over a year now, and I still haven't reread it, even though I own a copy now. But I know I'm going to read it.
Well, it doesn't help that we've got the book club now, that rereading books that we just enjoy is difficult because we want to read the books that we're all reading together. True. Which is why doing like rereads of series that we all enjoy is really good.
That's actually one of the reasons I'm really excited about next month, because Matt has chosen a movie. There's no subscribed read next month. I'm like, oh my god, I can read so many books that I just want to read. Whatever. And Nai's like, you could just do that at any time, right? And I'm like, but I enjoy book reading with the book club too.
Yeah. Like, I like doing book club hangout, and I like chatting with everyone about our books, and we haven't even talked about the book, and we're so off topic, it's not funny.
Why don't we just start, guys? We can do better.
We can do better.
Right, focus, guys, focus. Do you want to talk about the opening first with the Riddle House and everything?
I remember reading that when it first came out and just being so overwhelmed and confused that we weren't starting at the Dursleys and it was such a huge deviation from the other books and what on earth is going on. And I think because I already, obviously this is my millionth reread of this book, it made it a lot easier. But then I picked up on little things that I sort of hadn't picked up on before. But I still don't know whether or not I like the book starting differently to how the other books start.
Well, it's pretty much from this point on that they all do this, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I heard someone say that they think the reason for it is a sign that Harry's growing up and starting to become more aware of the greater world around him.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, at this point, he wasn't really aware of, like, Voldemort so much. Because, I mean, he wasn't in the world as of yet, really, like, not as a full entity.
But we also need a way to integrate him into the story, because the story, even though it's told in third person, it follows Harry the entire time. Like, we never follow another character. So you sort of need a way to introduce these elements without just chucking them somewhere confusing in the middle of the book.
Yeah.
Yeah,
or
well, I
not
suppose
having them at all.
it's not like we could really. Yeah, it's not like we could really follow Tom Riddle around.
Mm.
I mean, I know
No,
we kind of did when Harry went into the pensive.
that was
But
different. It was still from his. It was still
it's
from Harry's perspective. Still.
Yeah, it's still from Harry's perspective, whereas this is like it's basically the only time you see the story from anyone else's perspective.
Mm.
Like it's the only time that you hear anyone else's thoughts, and like that's really how the book differs from the movies too. Like
Yeah.
you hear a lot more people's personal thoughts in the movie because everything, like you can see different people's point of view, whereas in the books it's all very much the world is how Harry sees it.
Mm.
And if Harry doesn't see it or doesn't experience it, then you don't really experience it.
Yeah.
Whereas
And Harry really hasn't experienced much. Like, he hasn't. He grew up in a tiny little village where there was probably all white people, and he went to Hogwarts for 3 years. That's all he's really experienced in the world.
And we see that even when it comes out much later on in the book with Hagrid's parentage. And Harry just, like, it doesn't even occur to him that maybe having a giantess mother is no good thing. Like, you don't just see giants wandering around, Harry. Come on, put 2 and 2 together.
I was actually thinking about that this time around, in that, isn't it kind of amazing that Harry turned out as open and kind as he did, given that he was raised by the Dursley? I know that he wasn't embraced by the Dursleys, but it's not like he got much else in the world that would have shown him to be different either. And somehow or other, he turns out to be quite accepting of people as they are, and kind, and all of that sort of stuff. I'm like, how did you end up like that?
I think that might be the mark of a difference between a Gryffindor and a Slytherin. In, you know, one person will come out of that situation and be not wanting to treat people the way that he was treated, whereas a different person would come out of that situation and be very cruel and assume that everyone else was going to be bigoted and harsh and all of that.
True.
It could also be partly from the mark, like from the scar that was a mark of his mother's love, like.
But he didn't know that until he was 11. All he knew is he had a scar.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that he knew that, but the way that the reason he doesn't like hate the Dursleys, like, and isn't like, you know, trying to destroy them before he goes to Hogwarts, might be because he's sort of got that mark of love on him. So
it's an imprint of some kind that's.
Well, I mean, it is basically the imprint of his mother's love.
True. Yes.
Okay. So that could be part of it. I'm not saying that's all of it, or even that it does make an effect, but it could be. Because, I mean, it really is his mother's love. Like, that's what it is.
Yeah. No, I prefer that to the. I've never been much to subscribe to the whole nature side of the nature versus nurture debate, and so that I actually prefer to accept over than it's just in his genes.
Well, I mean, James was a giant prick.
True.
No, that's true.
Like, if we're talking about what's in his genes, he would have been so much more of a prick. Like, an absolute asshole to, like, he wouldn't have ever befriended someone like Neville.
No, that's true.
A lot more like his dad.
But then again, James did befriend, what's his name? Pettigrew, yeah, Peter Pettigrew. So, I mean, Peter didn't turn out to be very good in the end, but he really was just a Neville-style character in the beginning, not very good at anything, kind of
The theory is that, like, going from sort of the Marauders generation to Harry's generation, Peter Pettigrew is Neville, like, that's the equivalent in their sort of timeline. Yeah. So, you know, he could have very easily turned out like Peter Pettigrew.
But I suppose that Harry is quite a lot like James. Like, there's that part where he tells Snape that his father didn't strut, and neither does he. But Harry does strut around Hogwarts like he's better than everyone else. He had no regard for the rules. He constantly
To be fair,
defies teachers and tells people what he thinks, and he's kind of a brat a lot of the time.
I would definitely agree.
People let him be a brat. That's the problem. Like,
that's true too. But I think the thing is that you're right. He definitely gets away with just doing with whatever he wants. Like, he constantly finds out things and then doesn't tell anybody.
To be fair, he hasn't really had trust of adults instilled in him.
True.
Like, his first year of Hogwarts, one of the teachers had Voldemort growing out of the back of his head. Doesn't really instill confidence in the teaching, like in the teachers of your school.
Yeah, but I think some of it was, like, he hasn't used his best judgment in certain circumstances when it comes to sharing what's going on.
To be fair, he's a 11, 12, 13, and now 14-year-old boy. When has a 14-year-old boy ever used his best judgment?
And to be fair, if he was doing that, then there wouldn't have been much of a story either. So I get that. But at the same time, as someone who is a teacher, I spend now a lot of time just going, stop it, it's okay, stop it, it's all right, he doesn't have to go tell everybody, it's what he does. Because to me, I'm just like, why are you keeping this a secret? Why aren't you telling anyone?
Well, I suppose in Goblet of Fire he does tell someone, but that someone happens to, not be who he thinks he is.
That's true.
He does tell Moody about Crouch, and he does tell Moody quite a few other things that he suspects. But the problem with that is Moody wasn't Moody, which just gives him further reason not to trust adults.
I agree, and he definitely did tell serious stuff in this one too. So in this one, I actually can't really fault it, and so I should stop mentioning that point, because I think it's actually in book 5 that I really actually have a problem with this stuff.
But honestly, why not go tell Dumbledore or McGonagall these things? Those are proven, trustworthy, capable adults. Those are the people he should be going to tell things to, not
really Dumbledore.
Crazy
he's a proven, trustworthy person. The man that left you with the Dursleys. He's a trustworthy person.
Hey, he had a reason for that.
Harry doesn't know that. Like, Dumbledore.
Harry doesn't not trust Dumbledore either. Harry does trust Dumbledore. Whether he should or not is another matter.
He doesn't trust him implicitly, though. He doesn't tell him everything.
He doesn't tell him anything.
But then I think that some of that comes from the fact that Dumbledore doesn't tell Harry a lot, so there's not a lot of two-way communication at all.
No, well, I mean, that is the problem. Like, Harry knows that Dumbledore's hiding things from him, so he hides things from Dumbledore, thinking that if he tells him something, that he'll be left more in the dark.
Yeah. He'll be left out of what's going on. But then that comes back to what Karina was saying almost too, that, like, how he sees himself as the one who can solve these problems all the time, when normally a child wouldn't be trying to do that sort of thing.
I mean,
especially given the fact that he couldn't even solve any of the Triwizard Tournament things by himself. Like, those are things you're actually meant to be doing by yourself, and you're not even trying to do that.
I mean, he's always told that he can solve all these big problems. Like, oh my god, you're the boy that lived. You can solve the problem. Like, people keep telling him that. So he feels like he has to try.
I definitely agree, and I agree that he's been told it. It's just that what he doesn't see is that part of what's come from that is that he is a little bit puffed up from that.
Oh yeah, no, 100%.
Anyway,
going back to the book.
Yeah, hey, we were on topic. We were
on topic. What did everyone think about the introduction of of Cedric and sort of meeting his father for the first time? Like, it felt a little bit forced, especially on rereads, like knowing that Cedric is such a big character in the rest of the book, like, and they hadn't sort of really interacted at all. Like, there was no reason for them to be suddenly interacting now, really.
Yeah. And
Other
did you
than the
notice?
fact,
Sorry.
other than the fact that they were trying to make him an important character so that you cared about him throughout the book.
Mm,
But I still didn't care about him. He's still very much a nothing character to me. He's
I agree with
still
that.
he's just a pretty boy. Like, he doesn't really have a personality. He doesn't really have any redeeming or damning qualities. There's just not that much to him to care about. And I get suddenly thrusting him in the limelight, but I still just I'm not bothered by the fact that he died.
I never cried over him. That's for sure.
No.
I think that I agree that he's been introduced in this way because he's going to be this major character. So I agree she's definitely done that, and it's a little bit obvious in that respect. But she's also at the same point in time. So exactly when they introduced Cedric and his father, they also mentioned for the first time the Lovegoods. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I did.
I never noticed that before.
I think I'd noticed it before, but not really given it that much thought before.
Mm.
Like having that number of visiting families so close to one another.
Yeah, and it's sort of like, and all of these key players that in the storyline actually being that close together too.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Victor Crumb being the sort of the seeker that catches the snitch in one of the big games that they see, and you know, like that sort of thing. Like the Quidditch World Cup introduces a lot of characters very, very quickly.
It just sort of goes to show how much he must have planned in advance. Like, the simple fact that the Lovegoods are that close to the Weasley means that Ron knows where they live well enough to get them there in the 7th book, which is going way off topic, but anyway.
Yeah, because I mean, there's no way that Harry and Hermione would have known the way to the Lovegoods. Like,
No.
No way that either of them would know where the Lovegoods live. Like,
That's exactly it.
It also makes me wonder just how big the wizarding world is. Like, we're never given a proper impression of how many wizards there are, like in a ratio of wizards to muggles. And
no, it's definitely less than Muggles, that's all.
Yeah, it's definitely less than muggles, but you're never given sort of a really good impression of how many there are. And when he says that there's only the 3 families in that area, it makes me think that there's a lot fewer than I originally thought, just because you're sort of given the impression that the Weasleys live in their own sort of very magical corner of the world.
But I suppose the fact that that there really is only one major town that's all wizards in England, which is Hogsmeade, right? Sort of says, and that's a very small town by itself. Like, it's only, well, it's got a few major items in it, but that's really, it's got more to do with the fact that people come visit because it is a wizarding town. But it's really in the end only got, what, 2 pubs? That's not very big. One of them's pretty seedy.
Small town.
well, I feel like a lot of the characters who are like a lot of the sort of kids that are at Hogwarts are either like half-blood or Muggle-born. Like, there aren't that many purebloods, like, comparatively to the amount of half-bloods and Muggle-borns. Like, there aren't heaps of Muggle-borns, but
yeah.
And there must be another pocket of, like, sort of the rich purebloods, because someone like the Malfoys wouldn't live, like, up next to a Muggle family. Like, there would be a sort of suburb of all all like pureblood old families.
Well, we see Malfoy Manor. I don't think Malfoy Manor actually touches any other property.
Well, at least not close enough that it's noticeable. I'm inclined to think that the majority of the wizarding families that don't live in their central points actually live in the countryside, away from people, the way the Weasleys do, the way the Malfoys do, the way the Lovegoods do. I think that they sort of are living fairly isolated.
Well, that would make sense. Like,
especially since they don't have to worry about, like, part of the reason we live near other people is because transport is such a pain in the ass, but they don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, because they've got...
Even the flu network is reasonably easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. as long as you speak clearly and enunciate your words, Harry.
What was with that? Talk
Take
about a plot
it.
device.
Yeah. I'm like, you didn't even try and say Diagon Alley at all. You just
True, you said diagonally.
like you just word vomited a bunch of sounds out. You didn't even try and say the words.
I always said it sounded, at least in the movie, it sounded more like diagonally.
Yeah, it was very, it did not sound like he was trying to say Diagon Alley.
Yeah.
And what did we all think about the Death Eaters like appearing sort of really for the first time in mass?
I think that there was an awful lot of panic over something that felt like very few people, and surely they could have subdued fairly easily.
Yeah, like it felt like there weren't that many Death Eaters flying around, and there would have been a ton of like
Ministry
Auroras
officials.
and ministry officials, and even like people who play Quidditch who would be fairly magically inclined and move very quickly on brooms.
Yep.
Would have some sort of skill to like tackle down someone.
I suppose it's supposed to be sort of an idea of the fact that there's a terror level because of what happened before, more so than just feels like overreaction, though.
Yes, it did feel a bit like overreaction because there wasn't, or it didn't seem like there was, like there was a lot more wizards than there were. Well, I mean, regular wizards than there were Death Eaters.
Yeah.
And not just that, I just still can't figure out why they would have chosen to attack, for lack of a better word, at that time in the first place. It just seemed so thrown in there to make a point.
I agree. Like, I think if the only thing I can think of is mob mentality. Lots of drinking, lots of people with similar mentalities together in a group. The brain, the theory goes. I say theory because I don't know it that well, but the theory goes that a group of people are only as smart as the lowest common denominator.
Right.
And in alcohol, you've got a pretty bad mix.
Hmm.
Well, not only that, they wanted to create terror, and a place that has lots of people like concentrated in one area is really easy to create terror. Like it's really easy to terrify lots of people who are really close to, like really sort of pushed together.
Yeah.
Drinking or no.
The other thing, though, that I'm sort of like, it wasn't even just the people in the ministry. It was all of these international witches and wizards. There was a whole heap of people there that can help.
Yeah, and it felt very like, I'm like, Voldemort feels very England isolated. Like, I realized that he probably would have had effects over in Europe, but he was very England concentrated. Like, how much would it have, like, would the First War really have affected, like, the rest of Europe?
Well, this is where we get into discussing things that we know from later books, especially when it comes to Victor Crumb and his, was it Bulgaria?
Yeah, Bulgaria.
Yeah.
And what happened with the other dude, Grindelwald. Grindelwald?
Yeah.
Grindelwald, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, people who've come out of those circumstances should have been well on board with helping.
Yes, definitely.
At least we know Victor at least was particularly anti everything that Voldemort was for because of those circumstances, so...
Yeah.
My Pokies are so cute. Anyway, but I must admit, one of my favourite scenes ever in the Harry Potter books is that scene with the wizard at the World Cup beforehand, who's refusing to wear
pants. A nice breeze around my nethers.
Yes.
Private.
So good. Oh, that's good stuff. It just sticks in your brain, those sorts of little bits and pieces.
think my favorite like joke of how could you not follow what the book said was when the names are being called and it's Harry Potter and Dumbledore in the book is like, Harry, did you put your name in the book? Softly and very angry. And in the movie, he's, Harry Potter, did you put your name in the book? It's like, yeah, he didn't yell at all in the book.
Yeah,
Like,
Dumbledore
you need to just,
calmly.
yeah, calmly.
Well, that's because the Dumbledore in the books actually trusts Harry and thinks Harry is a good boy, whereas in the movies it was like, what the? Did you read the books?
Also, he comes across as much more of an eccentrical crackpot in the books. Like, he says some really ridiculous, outlandish things. Like, when they go visit Hagrid after the story comes out about his mother, and Dumbledore says that he's gone deaf and can't hear a word that they say. Like, little things like that where he's just an absolute nutter and you're like, what are you talking about? They got left out completely.
Yeah. Which is sad because that made Dumbledore Dumbledore. Like, that was part of his charm.
The single most upsetting thing about the fourth movie is the fact that they left out the entire storyline of Dobby and Winky.
Yes, I love Winky.
On the one hand, I can live without Spew. On the other hand, yes, I would have liked Dobby and Winky, especially Winky. She's such a tragic character.
I agree, and also I think it's unfair that Dobby doesn't get credit for helping Harry for the with the gillyweed.
And also the big reveal of how the kitchens work. The tables underneath the tables. I always love that detail, that discovery of, oh, actually Dumbledore isn't quite as clever as he makes everyone seem. He's just transporting the food upwards. But only book readers would know that.
I think the thing is that perhaps the movies didn't want to acknowledge the fact that there was pretty much a slave race that was behind Hogwarts and making it work.
Yeah.
So, yeah. No, I agree about the slave
race.
Sorry?
A willing slave race? Like, they were happy to do it.
Oh, it's all very conflicting, isn't it?
It is. It's. Are they doing it because they've been brought up in it and they don't know any better? Or are they doing it because they genuinely want to do it?
And there's no real perspective that gives you an idea of what's right or wrong. In the end, I'm sort of like, I think that you've got to look to the fact that Dobby has chosen a different path and you've just got to let that naturally happen in amongst the group rather than trying to impose on them what you think is the right thing for them in either direction.
And even with being free, Dobby still struggles with certain things. Like, he punishes himself for speaking out against the Malfoys even though they're not his family anymore.
Yeah, like he still finds it difficult to be a free elf even though that's exactly what he wanted. And I think that's part of why some of the elves don't want to become free elves, because they're like, well, yeah, it's all well and good in theory, but I see what Dobby's going through and I don't want to have to go through that, even though maybe I would like to be free.
Also, I work at Hogwarts. It probably doesn't get much better than that. Like, you get 4 months off a year.
Yeah.
Picking up after like 11-year-old boys.
Oh, God.
Think about that. School holidays. Yes, but school holidays. Empty castle.
Yeah. But they don't go home every school holidays, or at least...
See, I could see them complaining that there was nothing to do just as easily as actually.
Although it's never really discussed whether the teachers live at Hogwarts full time.
Well, I assume not, given the opening scene of the 6th book with Snape at his house.
But then Trelawney says that it's her home when she gets fired.
Exactly. So it changes between them depending on what they want to do personally.
Yeah.
I feel like Trelawney lives there because it's Trelawney. Yeah. I feel like most teachers wouldn't.
But at the same time, like, do they come and go in between, except for maybe actually, you know what? We're getting way too close to one of my personal pet peeves, so I'm not going there. Because I think I did it last time, and I do not need to rehash that argument. Anyway. You guys are welcome to keep talking about it, by the way. I'm just trying to stop myself from going, like... Because as much as I love these books, I think the problem is that they're based in a school.
Yeah.
I know.
I get that quite a bit too. I actually had a moment of whose idea was it to put a giant swimming pool-sized bathtub in a private bathroom exclusively for 16, 17-year-old students.
Well, actually, something was said about that the other day, and on Twitter or someone said something. Maybe it was you. And I was like, isn't it for the boys?
Do the prefects have separate gendered bathrooms?
They don't say either way.
Yes,
and
he just says it's the prefect's bathroom, and I'm like, well, is it the prefect's boys' bathroom or the prefect's bathroom?
I'm inclined to think it has to be the prefect's boys' bathroom, given how much effort she put into describing how boys can't go into the girls' dorms. I find it very hard to believe that she didn't consider the fact that the bathrooms would be separate.
The only other thing that I could think of was the possibility that only one person's allowed in the bathroom at a time.
That's a very big bath for an individual.
Yeah, that's a very big bath. But I mean, even if it was an all-boys bathroom, 16 and 17-year-old boys, would they really want to share a bath with another boy?
That's a good point too.
It's a big bath.
It's a very big bath. But
the thing is, to me, this doesn't even come up as an issue because I've never even considered it a problem because in Japan, that's what they do.
Yeah.
I'm more thinking 16 and 17-year-old boys that have grown up in England.
Yeah, I know that. I know.
That's not going to be the norm for them.
No,
and also,
I'm not disagreeing.
Harry and Ron could go into the girls' bathroom.
I'm not disagreeing.
Oh, they went into the girls' bathroom.
That's a toilet, though, not a bathroom.
Yeah, but in the bathroom where, it seems like a larger bathroom than just a bathroom. I don't think it's a shower.
But wouldn't it need to be closer to a dorm if it was a shower?
Yeah, I'd assume they'd have showers, attached to the dorms, if not in there.
Yeah. I actually always assumed that there was a bathroom off each of the individual dorms so that the 5 boys would shared one little bathroom or something.
Yeah. Sorry, I have a... Are you crawling into my lap or not? So yeah, Mel, you were saying before that Harry doesn't really do any of the sort of tasks for the Triwizard Tournament by himself.
Actually, I didn't say that because
that was
I actually give him
Karina.
I give him pretty good credit for the last task at least.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But the other two that actually had figuring stuff out involved, he didn't figure shit out.
No, he really didn't.
Well, I mean, with the last task, there wasn't a lot he could have done pre going into the task.
I think the thing is that it's part of the story that he gets help from Moody, however indirectly. That's kind of the point of the end of the story is that Moody has been helping him do the tasks.
Except it's not Moody. It's
Crouch Jr.
Crouch Jr. And it's because he wants him to win. Because he wants him to get the trophy first.
Exactly. So I'm sort of inclined to think, well, that's actually not got to do with Harry's capabilities so much as the deviousness of the situation where they're trying to show that that's what's going on, at least so that there's a traceable storyline for the ending. Yeah.
Because honestly, I don't think that if Harry was left to his own devices, he would have got past the first task.
He wasn't.
No, I think he would have walked in and gone, I don't know.
Yeah. He wasn't supposed to, right? The whole point was that he was too young to be doing it.
Yeah. Which, I don't get it. If there's a age limit on putting your name in the thing, wouldn't it like not let you appear? Like, wouldn't it not let you compete if you were too young?
No, because it wasn't.
The cup doesn't know the age limit. It's just the line.
Yeah. Dumbledore put something in place for it, so
yeah,
it wasn't
no,
the
he
cup.
did. No, that's fair.
Yeah. So, and so that's probably the thing that was hoodwinking the cup was the fact that there was a fourth school. That was weird.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, there's only 3 schools, dude. Calm down,
Yeah.
Cup. Calm down.
So I don't know how Moody Barty Crouch
Junior.
Jr. managed to do that bit, but yeah. But they do actually explicitly say at some point, Barty Crouch Senior actually says at one point how good his son was. Like when he's raving to Harry when he's come to the school, he's actually talking about how good his son is and what high marks he's gotten and stuff like that. So Barty Crouch Jr. is actually an exceptionally good wizard.
Yeah, he is. It's just insane.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's shown quite a bit through the book, though. Like, we see him do a lot of things that you wouldn't expect of an average wizard to begin with.
Mm.
Yeah.
So much crafting still going on. Obviously, last night had an effect on us.
Yes.
It was here. It was right here. That's half the problem. It was still just there.
I just have this pile of ends. It's a very large pile of ends.
It is indeed. See, my pile of ends happens in sections when I go through all of them and stitch in the tails, and then I cut off all of the bits and pieces.
I have to do them as I go, or I won't do them.
I do, because I do these in sections, so the colour combinations, each colour combination I do 17 squares, so it gives me a good stop point where it's not ridiculous to do that many, and I don't start the next colour combination until I've done the tails, so it works out for me. Otherwise I would agree normally I would need to do that.
My current method for colour combinations is draw 3 balls of yarn out of the bag.
I'll see. I've got mine all table and graphed out. I'm like, this is how many I need of this particular colour, and I'm tracking which ones I've done and all sorts of bits and pieces.
Which I've done plenty of times, but this one was just it's meant to be a mess.
Yeah, no, but that's exactly the point, right? One day I should do one of those where I just sort of use what I've got.
It's a little stressful at first.
Really?
When you're not used to doing it, it's just, oh no, is it all going to work? Is it all going to come together? But I did sort of line the colours up to begin with and make sure that they made a nice gradient. So, in theory, they should all work together. And they are so far.
See, if I did it, it would have to be so it was a blanket sort of where the pugs are, so I didn't have to worry about it surviving, and it's like, it can be as ugly as it wants to be.
Everything ends up a cat blanket. It doesn't matter if it was for me or for her. Everything is a cat blanket.
That's true.
But yeah, because most of my wool does not match at all, because I buy little bits and pieces to use for different projects. So this blanket is unusual in that I've actually bought it all so that it does match. I very rarely do such big things. Although, if anybody wants it, I've got an awful lot of wool of a particular style that I want to get rid of because I've decided I'm not using it.
I'm very tempted to take you up on it, but I really don't need more yarn.
I'll show you.
Don't.
I'll show it to you and you can decide whether you like it enough, and then I can give it to you if you do. Because, in all honesty, there's actually enough there for a cardigan.
That's a lot.
It is a lot of wool. But I didn't like the wool in the end, and I'm happy for it to go to a good home rather than me chucking it in the bin, although I'll probably donate it rather than doing that.
Yeah.
2 secs, I'll be right back. It's just behind me.
We don't get off track at all.
Not even a little bit.
Okay.
Oh, that is really pretty.
So these actually go together. They all just sort of have, it's a colorway that sort of blends.
Ah.
So these just happen to be the more purple ones, but if you go in deeper, you can see the orange comes out of it.
Yeah. It's really pretty.
Oh, pretty.
Well, if you want it, I'll bring it with me in September. I've actually literally got a whole drawer full.
Holy crap!
Let
What
me
did you
just see
buy it for originally?
A cardigan, and I've only used one ball, and I hated the cardigan. And I was like, I hate this. I don't want to do it anymore.
Oh, fair enough.
Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 balls.
That must have cost you a fortune.
No, it was just stuff that was on special at Spotlight. It's 70% acrylic, 30% wool, and they are, I think, 50-gram weight ones. Yeah, 50 grams. And it's a bit of a thicker one. Like, it's not thin at all. It's quite thick.
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah, but what I don't like about it, I'll warn you, because
Yeah.
I had problems. So, see how it's really that sort of bunched up stuff. It's not got like a proper twist in it.
Yeah.
So I make a lot of mistakes when I crochet, and this stuff you can't undo very easily.
You can't undo it because it just felts together.
Yeah. So it's got that problem for me, and if I kept it, maybe one day I'd make a blanket or something out of it, because it's a lot harder for me to make mistakes on something basic like a blanket.
Yeah.
But I'm actually quite happy to just get it out of my art room as well. I don't care that much about keeping it.
I did actually do that thanks, Kira, a couple of months ago. I went through my whole drawer and just went, I don't need this, I don't need this, I don't need this, and threw a bunch out.
So this is actually taking up a whole drawer, which
Yeah.
I've got wool stashed in 2 other places. I've got like a big bucket of it down there, and I've got another container up there of it. That's both are full, and I'm like, I want my drawer back. And it's been long enough now. Like, it's been a year and a half since I even tried to actually do it. I know I'm not going back to that cardigan. There's no way it's happening. So if you want it, it's yours. If you don't want it, Naomi, it's yours if you want.
I think it's a bit thick for Brisbane.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah. This is true.
Probably.
Otherwise, I'll probably offer it to Olivia.
I'm very torn because it's really pretty, but I don't need more yarn.
But it's like all matching yarn that you can use for a proper project.
Which I never have. I just have scraps of crap in my drawer. Nice crap, but crap that doesn't match.
Well, that's what my stuff's like as well, but it's like I'm not going to use this, so it's about the wool type.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
So, yeah, it's there. I'll let you think about it. You can make up your mind. It's not like it's going anywhere.
Yeah. I'll let you know. Oh, come here, noisy thing.
So what did we all think about the Yule Ball and sort of how, like, just in general, how it, like, how Harry and Ron bought the Patel twins and kind of just didn't care, and what the hell have I done?
They're bastards, basically, but we already knew that.
Yeah, we did know that, because they're... But I mean,
Ron doesn't break out of his mistreatment of females until he does the whole... Yeah, look, we can't go into the specifics, but book 7 at some point. But I must admit, this is the first time when I was reading this one as a reread at this age, it's the first time I was... Because I've always thought Ron and Hermione, I always like Ron and Hermione together, all of that. This is the first time where I was like, you know what? Hermione and Victor, I could have done that.
Absolutely.
I just like that at least Harry asked Cho, like, he decided I want to go with Cho, like that's the person I've decided, and then he asked, and she said no, and he was all sad about it, but at least he asked.
Which is
Whereas
a pretty
Ron,
miracle for a teenage boy.
yeah,
Mm.
like Ron got last minute going, oh well you're a girl, Hermione. It's like, no fucking shit, dumbass.
Yeah,
I think
screw
the
you,
problem,
buddy.
Ron doesn't know that he likes Hermione at this point, though.
No,
Like,
but I'm not saying that he he should have known that he likes Hermione, but saying to a girl, oh, you're a girl, you should go with
yeah,
me.
that's definitely dick move, definitely.
Yeah. I'm like, really, Ron? Really? We couldn't think of anything else to say other than, you're a girl? It's like, really? Just,
Yeah, but
I could.
back
I
on our
almost
Xander isn't as bad as you make him out to be conversation, Naomi.
yeah,
That's
I
exactly
know.
what Xander does to Willow.
Mm.
In those exact words. You're a girl, we could go.
Yes, but Willow never actually asks Xander out. Like, not for the first sort of season anyway. Like,
Yeah.
she doesn't actually ask him anything. Whereas Xander at least tried to ask Buffy out. And yeah, okay, he was a dick about it for a really long time, but he tried, he put himself out there. And that's half the battle. And that's the thing. Like, you can't just be like, hey, we're friends and you're the opposite sex, we should go together. Like, that's not how this game works, dude.
What
I think the
found
problem
really...
is, though,
Sorry.
it's very hard in a long-reaching story to establish the couple that you want to have at the end, but not to have it happen too soon so that it burns out, is destroyed, or you have to kill it off before the end of the series. So it's a really hard thing to negotiate to do that. Using him as being just a normal teenage, well, I don't actually want to call it normal because I don't think boys should behave that way at all, but generally they do. Boys are really nasty to girls.
What I
Boys
found
are
really
dumb.
funny about the whole situation was Dean says to them, how did you two manage to land the most attractive girls in the year?
Mm.
Why
And
was
I'm
that?
like-
Why had no one asked them out yet if they're so attractive?
Because they're the most annoying girls of their year.
I don't know. We don't really know that much about Padma.
This is true. We
Yeah,
actually...
that's true. Okay. Pavati is one of the more annoying ones. I think
Yes.
because they're twins, they kind of just get clumped together, but I feel like Pavati is she can be very outspoken and kind of obnoxious, whereas I feel like Padma is a bit quieter because she's the Ravenclaw. She thinks about what
she's just slower.
Yeah. Or she thinks
think the
about
thing is-
what she's trying to say to someone else rather than just saying what's on her mind, which I feel like is what Pavati does sometimes. Like, she just says whatever is on her mind or the first thing that comes to it, whereas Padma thinks about what she's trying to say.
I think the thing is, too, is that you have in this environment happening what often happens in small country towns, too, where they've actually known each other for quite a long time already, and it's kind of weird to see them as something other than just the person who's always been there, like, to see them as something different.
Yeah, and I suppose that's why Hermione was so interested in Victor and Victor was so interested in Hermione. Like, they were very... because they were new for one another. And yeah, okay, they were attracted to each other because they were interested in similar things and they had things to just like talk about. And obviously them being new wasn't the only thing that brought them together, but it helps. Like, when, it's why so many couples that get together in high school don't last, because you see each other grow up and you're only ever together because that's the person that you were just with all the time. The same with the high school friends. Like, a lot of them you don't keep once you're finished high school because they were just always around. So you just always had them.
I agree. And I think the other element, too, of this is that... Sorry. What was I saying? The other element of this... It'll come back to me.
That was really funny. There's an ever so slight delay, so I saw you swear before you actually said it.
Are you kidding? Oh, dear. Right. Anyway, what was the other? Oh, yeah. The other thing, too, is that you actually don't see Ron express any interest in other females. Like, we're inside Harry's head, so he doesn't count. Ron has not expressed aloud an interest in another female apart from Fleur, or generally the Velas in general, until this book. And even then, you don't actually see him showing any particular interest in any other girls at all. So I think that very muchly what's at play, at least with the immediate females that are around, because he doesn't show any intimidation around them either, is that he's just so familiar with them. He's not interested.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he's grown up with these girls. They're, he's known them since they were awkward 11-year-olds.
And he was even more awkward.
Yeah, but what I mean is he's seen them as a child.
Yeah. And the difference with Hermione is that he has to actually grow up and mature quite a bit before he's actually even really particularly interested in that direction. Yeah. Even though he's actually jealous in this book, he just doesn't understand it.
I suppose another part of that is he grew up the youngest of 6 boys with only his mother around. That was his only interaction with girls until Ginny was born. And Ginny's just his little sister. And being the younger sister of a whole bunch of brothers, you're not really like a normal girl to begin with.
No.
And wizards don't go to a normal primary school, so he never had any other interaction with any other girls to begin with, and suddenly he's thrown into this situation where there are other girls his age and older, and he just wouldn't really know how to deal with that. Like, at least Harry had gone to a primary school with Muggle girls before and actually had to talk to girls before.
Yeah, this is true. And I think it's almost sensible that something doesn't start between Ron and Hermione at an early stage for the simple reason that it'd get in the way of the trio.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think that Hermione should have gone with Ron to the Yule Ball, but I feel like Ron doesn't know, like, Ron very much just does... He went with a girl because that's what you're supposed to do. Like,
yes. Yeah, this is very true.
He asked a girl to go with him because that's what you're supposed to do. And because they have a reasonably even amount of girls to boys ratio, or it seems like, especially with their year, they seem to have a fairly even ratio of boys to girls.
Yeah.
That,
at least in Gryffindor they do.
Yeah, it was inevitable that they were going to be able to find a girl to go with, especially because Neville went with Ginny and she's the year below them. So, you know what I mean? Like, there was opportunities. There was always going to be an opportunity for them to go with a girl. And for them, I don't think it mattered who the girl was. It just needed to be a girl because that's what you're supposed to do.
It mattered for Harry.
It did matter for Harry.
But actually, speaking of Ginny, how sad is it when Ginny gets basically thrust to Harry as, here you go, you can go with Harry, and she has to say no, and you can tell she's so sad. Poor Ginny.
I'm so embarrassed at having to admit that she is going with Neville.
And it's just because I had to go. If I didn't go with him, I couldn't go at all.
Yeah. I'm not a 4th year. I don't get to go, and I didn't think Harry would ask, and he didn't.
And I don't understand what's with the 4th year thing. It's like, it just coincidentally, you're in 4th year, Harry, and you get to go to the ball.
Well, I think the 4th years were included because Harry had to go because he was one of the participants. I feel like that's the only reason why the 4th years had to go.
I just think that because they got the dress robes before they went to school, it was on their list of requirements for the year. Harry wasn't a champion at that point.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, no, that's stupid. Sorry, I didn't really think about it, but yeah. because they did get their dress robes before Harry knew that he was going to be. Oh, although I suppose like Fleur bought her little sister, who would have been sort of 3rd or 4th year.
Mm.
So I don't know.
I just felt it was well, she didn't bring her little sister. Was she actually there beforehand? I don't think she was supposed to have been there beforehand.
Yeah, she was the acrobatics kid in their little opening sequence. She was there from the beginning.
In the movie, yes, but I don't think that's ever stated in the book. Especially since when Harry rescues them, he says that she seems like she's only about 8 or 10 years old. Like, she's not schooling age.
I thought she was mentioned earlier in the book.
Nah.
Maybe not. Like I said, I haven't reread it for a little while.
That was, and that's actually one of my other biggest pet peeves about the book. It's like all of Durmstrang are boys, and all of what's it called?
Beauxbatons.
Thank you. Are all girls, and then they do this funny little routine when they come into this school. I'm like, oh my god, what is this?
But I mean,
especially since Padma and Parvati explicitly start hanging out with 2 Beauxbatons boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the book,
In the book.
But that doesn't mean they're all boys, though. That just means that they were two.
Boys, not Durmstrang boys, Beauxbatons boys.
Yes, exactly. That's right.
Like, it's really clear that there are boys from Beauxbatons. Maybe not girls from Durmstrang. I don't think we see any girls from Durmstrang, do we?
I don't think they're mentioned, but I don't think it's a purely boys' school.
No.
I doubt it, since they are regional schools. Like, I think that Durmstrang services a certain part of Europe.
Yeah.
Well, I think girls are mentioned. I just don't think any girls are brought with them.
Harsh.
Actually, I think you're right about that. I think I remember Crumb talking about girls.
Yeah, like, I'm sure Crumb was talking about girls at school, but I don't think there was any with them.
No. Oh, well, but see, I don't think that it was explicitly said either way for the Durmstrang group.
Well, everyone that was mentioned was male. That's all. Like, that's all I mean. Everyone that was spoken about or mentioned in the book was male.
I know, but I think the fact that it's clear that Beauxbatons is not all female, that it's just as easily for there to have been a female and amongst that group. It's just they're not actually named or mentioned.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not saying they weren't there, it's just they're not mentioned at all.
No. I didn't come across anything explicit. But then I also still have 100 pages to go this time round, so...
Well, I feel like by the last event, there are people who have come to see it that aren't necessarily part of the group that came first. Like, they're not part of the group that arrived with the initial sort of group of students, because it's the final.
The initial group of students is actually quite small by the description. There's only about 15 or 20, maybe less.
Not very many at all.
Well, that's why I think that by the last event, there are more students there that have, like, travelled across to see it.
Mm.
Probably travelled with family to see it.
That's possible.
It's interesting that the Quidditch World Cup, which hasn't been mentioned in all of the previous books, is in the same year as the Triwizard Tournament.
Yes. And can I just say, there's a significant lack of sport in general in this world, that only 7 people from each house actually get to participate in under normal circumstances. To cancel sport entirely for this particular event seems over the top. Why couldn't they both run?
Because the two Hogwarts people were 2 seekers of 2 of the houses.
We didn't know that was going to happen, right?
And really, Hufflepuff obviously found a new seeker since Cedric dies, and Ginny had filled in for Harry at one point, so it's not like they couldn't have just found another seeker.
Yeah.
It's one member.
There's only supposed to be one champion. Cancelling all of Quidditch for the one person who was going to be the champion, because remember, it's only supposed to be one, it seems a bit extreme.
Well, especially for events that, like, there's 3 of them. It's not like it's happening every other week or something. There's 3 of them, and they take a couple of hours each.
It's probably
she just didn't want to have to write in Quidditch.
Yeah, she just didn't want to write it, that's all. She didn't want it getting in the way of the story.
Well, not only that, like, the teachers would have been very... Like, the teachers that usually organise and sort of do Quidditch are probably the teachers that were in charge of creating the maze and making sure the dragons were hidden and that sort of stuff. Like, they would have been involved with those sorts of things. There would have been less
the people they brought on board. You don't think that the people they brought on from the ministry would have helped compensate for that?
I feel like Dumbledore doesn't trust the ministry as far as he can throw them. And he would have made sure that some of his staff were overlooking each and everything that was going on the school.
Yeah, we're getting dangerously close to my whole earlier complaint that I didn't want to start up on, which is the severe lack of the number of teachers in the school. So let's just not go there again. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, we should talk Rita Skeeter. Rita Skeeter.
He makes me angry.
It makes me very angry.
Like, she makes me so angry, and I don't even, I can't articulate why she makes me so angry, because she's not, like, she is one of the bad characters of the book, or the bad guys, like, not bad as in badly written, but, you know, she's a character that's designed to be hated, but I don't hate her because she's designed to be hated, she just irritates me.
But isn't that kind of the point? She's been written to irritate you.
She irritates me in a not good way.
But
I do like all the little nods to her being an animagus, though.
Yeah, and look, all power to Hermione for figuring that out and doing what she did around that. I'm like, you go, Hermione. Ever so quietly in the background, working away, beavering.
Like, look, I've caught a bug.
Don't pay attention to me. You guys keep doing what you're doing.
I'm just going to keep this bug in this glass jar. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
What's that bug? You need air holes? Oh, nah, you'll be fine, dude. So I think Hermione is too kind in that section. I would have definitely kept her in a glass jar for a much longer period of time.
I suppose there is a point where it becomes imprisonment, which you don't have the right to do.
Yeah, but she's an unregistered animagus, and she's running around doing lots more illegal things than just holding someone captor.
But if Hermione is anything, one of the things she definitely is very moral.
Yeah, I know. She's a Gryffindor. I know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that like it was such a bad thing. I'm like...
Sounds like you wish Hermione was a Slytherin there.
I just wish she was a Ravenclaw. Not so much a Slytherin. Like, I don't think she is... I don't think she could ever be a pure Slytherin. Like, I think she cares too much about...
Oh, she's definitely not Slytherin. Yeah.
Like, I don't think she could ever be the type of character that could be a pure Slytherin, but I feel like she could do well in Ravenclaw. Like...
Yes, I feel like it was a very close call for her.
Yeah.
That's the thing about Harry going into Slytherin. I never really got that. Like, apart from his connections to Voldemort, I'm like, I don't really see Harry as Slytherin that much.
I see Harry as more Hufflepuff than Slytherin. Like, way more
Yeah.
Hufflepuff. Like, yeah, okay, he is super brave, but he's also, like, super loyal to the people he's loyal to. And, you know, he cares for people even when he's not sure that he should. And,
I think the thing is that people don't have the traits of only one house. So.
Oh, no, of course not. I mean, that would make for a very boring world if people only had the traits of one house.
But I've got to admit, I still to this day question how on earth Hermione ended up in Gryffindor. Like, they could have had a cross-house friendship.
When they first started, though, cross-house friendships were not as common as they were by the time, like, they weren't really common until Harry started with the different
Justin Finley, or no, Eric E.
No, well, they weren't really common until like Harry started the like defense club kind of thing. Like they weren't as common.
I agree with you in that they weren't as close friends, but he definitely started developing relationships, I would say, from around about the second book.
But I don't think they would have, like, I don't think Hermione would be Hermione if Hermione, like, I don't think Hermione would be in the position Hermione's in if she wasn't a Gryffindor. Like, I don't think, like, she wouldn't have been able to stop Ron and Harry from
doing half the shit they did. Have I lost sound? Ah, shit. Hello?
I can't hear Naomi.
Ah! I can hear you.
Yeah, I've been muted because he keeps screaming, but I can't hear Naomi.
I fixed it. I'm sorry. I hit the mute button on my cord.
Oh, so you guys both hit mute at the same time, and I'm sitting here going, hello?
Oh, I've been muted for a while because he's sitting up there singing.
Oh my god, I feel like I'm such an idiot now.
Yeah, I was just saying that I don't think Hermione would be Hermione if she wasn't in Gryffindor. Like, I feel like she had to be in Gryffindor for it to really work. Because so much of their, like, planning happened in like, the Gryffindor common room.
I suppose to me I can just sort of see it as having happened a little bit differently. Like, she could have written it so that it happened. But I don't disagree. It helps in a lot of respects for them to be in the same house. So they would have had to spend an awful lot more time in the library.
Yeah, that was never going to happen. Ron and Harry were never going to spend more time in the library. Let's be honest, guys.
True.
True. Can I assist you, cat? He keeps poking me. He keeps just putting his paw on my leg, like just tapping me with his paw on my leg. Like, excuse me, you need to pay attention to your kitten. I'm here.
And then as soon as you stop so that you can pay attention, I don't care about you, right?
Yeah. Oh, well, he's not going to walk away until I feed him. And I can't feed him till we're done. So.
That's a lot of guilt to heap on us there, Naomi.
It's fine. He'll be fine. When I used to work until midnight, he didn't get fed until midnight because he didn't want to eat if it wasn't me. Like, if I wasn't feeding him, he didn't want it.
Wow. My pugs will just take food from anybody. Well, I'm trying to think if there's anything else to talk about.
Yeah, I just flipped through the book and I just feel like a lot happens in this book, but most of it's inconsequential.
Well, I think so.
The consequential stuff happens at the end.
Yeah, but even that, like, talking about it, I'm sort of like, it's all kind of obvious.
Yeah.
I mean, we could talk about Barty Crouch Jr. Like,
Yeah.
it was sort of his plan to bring Harry into into the tournament to get him to a place where they could capture him and use him to bring back Voldemort.
That's a risky freaking plan when you think about it. Like, they
Yeah.
could have just turned around and said, let's not have the tournament. The cup was hoodwinked. This doesn't count. This is stupid. He's 14. He's never going to survive this. That's a risky gamble.
I think the thing is, though, is that they could have switched to some other plan if that had gone by the wayside.
But what I don't understand is they got all the way into Hogwarts. Like, Barty Crouch Jr. was inside Hogwarts. The amount of opportunity he would have had to use some sort of spell or potion on Harry, put him underneath the invisibility cloak that we know he has because he was hidden under an invisibility cloak to get out of Azkaban.
Yeah.
So
actually, I've got to question the way that he can see with Moody's eye through that invisibility cloak. Of all invisibility cloaks, that should have been the one that you couldn't see through.
Yeah, that bothered me too.
Well, I thought he shouldn't have been able to see through them because he didn't really have Moody's eye.
Well, I thought he did have Moody's eye because when Moody's discovered in the trunk, he doesn't have his eye.
Oh, yeah, he does too. Sorry, I never quite finished it, and yeah. Oh, you are right. I'm sorry. Yeah. But yeah, like, he had all these opportunities where he could have, like, Harry, I'd like to see you after class. Harry would have come to his office by himself. Here, have a cup of tea. Tea is given.
Okay.
And let's get out of here, kid. Put Key out of this hole.
The only thing I can think of...
Or, like, using the Triwizard Tournament, especially since he was inside school, seems like a really stupid way. Like,
I agree with you. The only thing I can think of is that they wanted the effect of having that crowd there when it all happened.
But I mean, the effect of stealing the boy who lived from underneath Dumbledore's nose, like...
Yeah.
Like, that would have sent terror through people, like, through the population.
Well, in the end, it's a literary device that they went for because it made the whole story, I suppose.
I know.
The only other thing I could think of was that they needed more time. Like, there's only a couple of months in between Barty Crouch Jr. escaping from his father at the Quidditch World Cup and the start of the Hogwarts year. And we know that he traded places with Moody, like, that very day. So that's only a month for him to get back in touch with Voldemort, come up with this huge plan, and then implement it. And then they had to, Voldemort needed to be taken to the graveyard and all of that on top of it. And I just wonder if maybe they wanted a couple more months just for him to be a little bit stronger.
Possibly. Didn't they also need a certain type of night? Like, it needed to be a
particular night or something along those lines when they did it.
Yeah, it needed to be a particular night.
But in Harry's vision of what happened with Voldemort and Wormtail talking about it, Wormtail suggests that it's not necessary to do it with Harry, and Voldemort says that, well, what I would really like is to do this with Harry. Because of the other benefits that come along with it. So it mustn't be necessary to be on that night. It might have just had some sort of other auspicious reason for doing it then. I don't know.
Possibly.
I know this
is kind of... Oh, sorry, I was just going to say, I know this is kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but do you think that Voldemort knew that Harry had accidentally become one of his Horcruxes?
No.
No?
I think that's kind of the point. But we should really wait to discuss that. We definitely need to wait for that one because that's big discussion, that one.
And I suppose part of the point of using him was also so that he could touch him.
Yeah.
We completely forgot about that. He needed to have a part of Harry in order for the spell that stopped him from touching him in the first place not to be effective anymore.
Is anybody else bothered by the whole scene where prior incantatum comes into play and Harry's father comes out first?
Yes. Priori incantatum, they're supposed to go in order, Joe. Write them in order.
And I've tried so many times to justify it, to figure out how he could have died second or something along those lines. I'm like, in the end, every version of it says that he died first.
Well, that's sort of the really frustrating thing about it. She has gone through and fixed quite a few things between the first edition and the current edition, like little things like, I think the book is called 101 Magical Herbs and Fungi, and then later referred to as 1001 Magical Herbs and Fungi, and that's fixed. And, you know, little things like that you won't notice when they get corrected. But something like that he can't change because he openly says your mother's on her way. If he'd just come out and then she'd come out, it would be a different situation. She'd be able to change it.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those things that it's like, this stands out.
Yeah.
But, you know, given how many little threads and bits and pieces she puts in, I've got to give her a bit of a pass as well.
Oh, yeah, especially all the little things that you don't pick up on reading the first time and then you notice the second time. You're like, holy crap, who thinks of that?
Yeah.
But not only that, is that, like, you know, that's then saying that the only people that Voldemort has killed are the Potters. Like, really? Like, he didn't kill anyone else before he killed the Potters? In all of the time that he spent rampaging around England in the First War, he didn't kill anyone else? Like,
I didn't get that impression. I just thought the spell just stopped at that point.
Yeah, this was the last time that his personal wand, had been used, and it was doing the things backwards that the wand had last done. So the key thing being that he hadn't used the wand, because when he died at that point, and I say died, he wouldn't have been able to take his wand with him, I assume.
true.
How they got it back, I don't know.
Yeah. Hadn't thought of that because Pettigrew wouldn't have had it.
No.
Because he didn't have a wand on him.
All I can think of is that it was kept at the ministry and somebody got it out of the ministry.
Yeah.
Well, someone who was there that night may have taken it with them.
Another option.
Like Snape.
Mm-hmm.
And
Except for Snape giving it back to him seems weird as well, but...
Well, Snape may have taken it as a way to, you know, he wanted to destroy it to get back at Voldemort killing Lily.
But then he didn't actually destroy it, so...
In an interview, Joe said that Wormtail got it back for him.
Okay.
Wormtail, desperate to curry favour, salvaged it from the place it had fallen and carried it to him. I admit it would have been a bit of a feat for a rat, but they are highly intelligent creatures. But then why not, like, he goes to the effort of taking Hermione's wand? Or Harry's wand during Prisoner of Azkaban to turn himself back into a rat? If he had Voldemort's wand, he wouldn't have needed it.
Well, maybe he had Voldemort's wand, but not on him. Because, I mean,
Yeah,
isn't
maybe
it
he's
supposed to
smashed
be when you're in Animagus form, you don't have all your stuff? Like,
Yeah, it's not World of Warcraft where you've got these bags that are hidden that you can't see.
yeah. Like, you don't have your stuff with you. Like, I thought... Yeah, because, I mean, when Pettigrew changes back into a rat, all his clothes just lay there on the ground. Which is what irks me. Yeah, well, I mean, that's what irks me, because when he comes out of rat form, he's wearing clothes.
Mm.
Like, either he keeps his clothes when he changes to and fro, or he doesn't have clothes at all. Like, you can't have it both ways. Do clothes just magically keep appearing after you, like, change back?
Or do we just not want to see him naked?
Which,
That
in
might
all
be
honesty,
it too.
don't. It is a children's movie, too.
I know.
Let's face it, we only want to see Lupin naked and no one else.
Now we know we're your benders.
Look, I would not mind seeing Sirius Black naked. I'm totally okay with that. You know what I mean?
In
Like,
fact,
either...
let's have a Marauders party without Pettigrew.
Yeah. But I mean, the thing is, like, Rita Skeeter, she turns into a bug that is absolutely tiny. Like, when she comes back, like, like, you know, if she loses her clothes when she changes into a bug, which is what seems to happen when he changes into a rat, then how come people don't just find piles of clothes around when Rita Skeeter turns into a bug?
And
McGonagall spends all day sitting on the fence at the start of the first book. And when Dumbledore turns up, I very highly doubt she was just standing on Privet Drive naked.
And not only that, let's address the glasses. Both McGonagall and Rita Skeeter are described in their Animagus form of having marks like glasses around their eyes. And it's like, oh, hang on a tick. Do the glasses go with you? Because that counts as clothes too.
Yeah, like, I feel like him losing the clothes when he turned back into a rat was more of a visual thing that they did to sort of hide him as he was escaping, kind of thing. Like, if he just turned into a rat...
To not have so many visual effects.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if he just turned into a rat and there wasn't a pile of clothes that the rat was hiding in, it would have been a lot easier for someone to shoot him with some sort of stunning spell, because they would have been shooting directly at the rat and not at a pile of clothes.
This is true. This is very true. I think the thing is that what we're doing here is we're comparing the movie to the book, and in the book, I can't remember it ever being described whether or not clothing's left behind, and I'm inclined to think it's not.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be, because, like McGonagall is described as, like, appearing in the middle of a classroom. She wouldn't appear in the middle of a classroom naked.
No, exactly. You hit the nail on the head. That's it. Problem solved. Bigger question. Do the witches and wizards wear pants underneath their robes?
Yes.
Do you mean pants or underwear?
A bit of both.
Just checking. English mother, pants are underwear.
Yes, I know. I like the ambiguousness of using that term because it does cover both.
Yeah.
Because I'm sort of like, the gentleman who we met at the World Cup sort of implies that no, they don't wear trousers underneath.
I always assumed no, but then I got very confused when we got to the Yule Ball, and they're still just, like, I always imagined robes were just very straight up and down. They have sleeves, and they're just a body, like a very long t-shirt, essentially. But then we come to the Yule Ball, and all the girls are wearing, like, stylish turquoise and whatever. And I'm like, but how can you make this, you know, a robe, as I'm imagining it, quite a stylish dress without calling it a dress? So once I hit that point, I sort of threw out my notion of what robes were meant to be with a whole pile of confusion.
Well, I mean, the uniforms are always described as, like, a uniform with robes over the top, which is what makes me think that, I mean, at least the younger generations would wear pants under their robes, maybe not, like, older wizards.
Well, like, traditionally, I think at Oxford and things like that, that's exactly what they do. Like, they wear pants and shirts, and then their robes are actually open at the front, and they're just worn as, like, a big, almost cloak.
Yeah, but they've got sleeves.
But they've got sleeves, yes.
Yeah.
They look like they're walking around in dressing gowns. Very light, flowy dressing gowns.
I would really be okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm not too bad with that, actually.
I'm not mad about it. I'm really not mad about it.
But at the same time, when they describe Harry getting his uniform, they only really talk about the robes. They don't talk about anything else. Maybe robes is an all-encompassing term that covers the whole uniform. So much confusion.
Well, I think it's
To answer your initial question, though, no, I don't think that wizards wear trousers underneath their robes.
Ah, conflicting answers. Here we go. Naomi says yes. Karina says no. Let the battle begin.
I believe at least the younger generation wear pants under their robes. Because especially while running around, you wouldn't want to be wearing long robes because you would trip over them.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's why the girls are described as wearing more dress-like things than robes. Because they are, like, more and more of them are sort of coming from the Muggle world. So dresses would be the thing that you would think of to wear to a ball rather than, like, fancy robes.
I just feel like as much as they sort of describe the wizarding community as being separate from modern society, I really find it hard to believe that they'd be that separated, especially around fashion. I mean...
I don't know, they still use a wireless service for the radio.
Well, I get that. I understand. But that's got to do with magic, apparently, because electronics don't work so well and things like that. That's at least what I blame for that side of things. But when it comes to clothing, it doesn't make sense to source it at a reasonable price within the wizarding community.
I feel like Hermione would try to work out how to have electronics at school.
Yeah, but she never does. She just assumes.
No, it irritates me because I feel like as a Muggle that's used to having all these electronic sort of devices, she would start to try and work out a way to have said electronic devices at school.
Yeah, but that's one of the reasons why I really like that Carry On book, where it's a fan fiction of Harry Potter, but it's based in Rainbow Rowell's fantasy world for Fangirl, and I really like the fact that in that one they do have the electronics, and it's like, yes, this is what Harry Potter would be like if they had mobile phones.
Although I feel like maybe J.K. Rowling didn't add so many electronics because it keeps the book a bit more timeless.
Yeah.
Like, having an Apple iPhone kind of ages it a bit. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
I definitely agree. And the other factor, too, is that all of this is supposed to be happening in the 90s, so there were less mobile phones around in terms of especially kids actually having them.
True. Oh, yes, that's very true.
Also, they end up being so Deus Ex. Mobile phones solve so many problems.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that you have to have them like if you do have them, you get rid of all the problems. You just have to write for that environment. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Ignoring it doesn't solve the problem.
Yes, but suddenly I don't have to wait for a reply from Sirius because I can just send Sirius a text and say, hey, what do you think of this?
Yeah. But I think it's just that if you put it in as the stories are, yes, it changes the story. You have to write for the environment. But, yeah. They wouldn't have existed. The kids wouldn't have at least had them. That's the thing. In the end, they wouldn't have had them. Well, at least I don't think they would have. I mean, I didn't have a mobile phone in school at that time.
Sorry, I didn't either. Like, because first year is like 1991?
Something like that. It's not when it's published, but it's when she based it, so that's the key factor too.
Harry was born in 1980, so 1991 is the first book.
Yay!
That makes Harry the same age as my sister. He's literally 1 year younger than me.
He's actually in between my half-brother and half-sister.
Wow. Harry's 36 this year.
Yeah, here he is. Harry is 4 years older than me.
Wow. Let's stop talking about that now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like, okay, yeah, in this book, having mobile phones wouldn't have really made too much of a difference because this book would have been, what, 95?
Yeah. Well, 91, 92, 93, 94.
94?
Yeah.
94.
There's
I
a
suppose,
little
yeah, even
different.
by book 7, there wasn't really a large amount of mobile phones. Like, that would have been based in 1997.
Hmm.
And, yeah, even then, mobile phones weren't, like, they were around, but they weren't super common.
Certainly
But
not
then we
common.
could get into other things like pages and pages. Can't think of anything else. The Discman had just come out, Walkman, and then Discman was like,
Well, by
mm,
97, the internet was a thing. Like, you had things like a Messenger or MSN or ICQ. Like, you had ways
Pretty
of
simple.
communicating with people.
sure, but you had to wait 10 minutes for your internet to connect.
Yeah. And then if someone used the phone, God forbid they use the phone, because then you'd get disconnected. You had to wait till they finished using the phone, and then you reconnected, which took another 10 minutes if you were lucky.
Yeah. It's
So I suppose the time she's written it in lends itself to not really having the technology we would expect it to have if it was based in sort of like now. Like if Harry was in 7th year now, it would seem really weird that he wouldn't have some sort of mobile device.
yeah.
The only thing that sort of bothers me is that the lack of, I think we talked about this in the first hangout, them not having like movies and music and things that they're into.
Yeah, this is true.
Especially, it's just such a huge part of that age.
To completely not engage with modern Muggle culture doesn't make a lot of sense. Like,
Yeah.
I get maybe not having a TV in your house because of the magic around it, but you could still go see a movie at the cinema.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, for them, like, TV doesn't really seem to be a thing. I don't know, it's weird. Like,
Yeah.
TV isn't something that is brought into their world at all, so they wouldn't think of going to the cinema. Like,
But they have music.
they do have music, and that
So
they're
why
not.
not engage with any Muggle bands whatsoever? Like that, the start of this series is like the height of the grunge movement. Are you telling me that none of those teenagers would be into such an angsty time period of music? That's like just
Well, we
impossible.
know they are. Look at the weird sisters in this book. Like, that's
Yeah.
really described as a very grungy. Well, maybe I'm being influenced by the movie. They sound grungy anyway.
Well, I feel
It
like
just
they
seems incredibly
describe.
unlikely to me that they wouldn't have had anything to do with any Muggle media.
Yeah,
Well,
but this comes
especially
back to what I was saying about the fact that in the previous hangout that I said that they don't actually read any novels either. Like, they
Yeah.
certainly don't describe it.
Well, I mean, especially since there's a lot of people who live in the Muggle world, when they're not at school, them not sort of talking about it. Like, yeah, Dean talks about football, and that's
Yeah,
really the only thing he sort of talks about as a thing that is in his life outside of Hogwarts. Like,
yeah,
he doesn't really talk about the fact that, he would watch TV when he's at home, or go see a movie, or listen to the radio, or like he would do those things over his summer break when he's not at Hogwarts, and he never really discusses that at all. And I don't know
yeah,
if it's because he's suddenly back in the magic world and he doesn't know if people would accept him talking about those sorts of things, like because it's not part of their world. Like maybe that's part of the problem. Like the Muggle-born kids who do have cinema and like TV and that sort of stuff feel like, oh, I can't really talk about, if we're going to talk about music, we have to talk about magical music rather than Muggle music because they won't get it.
yeah.
I mean, maybe.
I don't know. I think that what it comes back to in the end is that it's hard to define where the break between wizard culture versus Muggle culture and what blends there are between where that should end and where it shouldn't. And she decided to do it where she did it. So
And I suppose the bigger thing is these issues never even occurred to me when I was reading them as a kid.
No.
No.
They weren't something that I thought about or noticed. Just like I didn't really notice the absence of, you know, a proper controlling staff and, you know, lots of the other issues that come up when you reread as an adult.
Hey, I was an adult when I read this, and those things didn't occur to me. So
maybe they're just things that happen when you reread and reread and reread.
Eventually you get... But I think that's the important thing to recognise, is we can criticise the book but still thoroughly love it and enjoy it.
Yeah.
So.
That said, I'm finding that I enjoy this a lot less than I previously had. Like, I've always thought of Chamber of Secrets as being my least favourite, but I'm finding a lot of this a slog just because a lot of it feels really filler. Like,
Yeah,
let's just get on with it.
I'm finding, like, this took me longer to read than it should have, really. I should have burned through this. But I think that's also because I've grown up a lot more. I've read a lot better books since... Well, no, let's be honest. I have read better books since then. As much as I still love these, they still have a really strong place in my heart. They're no longer the books that I reread all the time. And a part of that is that I've grown up. Not that I don't like really cheap-ass, terrible books still, but but like these are, I know them too well almost in some respects. That's, I think, part of the problem.
And the more that external canon comes out, the more that you wonder why she isn't answering questions like this.
Yeah. And things like, yeah, Karina, you're right. There is a lot of this book that seems to be filler, and I think it's because J.K. knew she wanted to have the, you know, Harry defeating Voldemort in his 7th year, like when he sort of was becoming an adult. Whereas I think that if Harry actually talked to Dumbledore and Dumbledore actually disclosed things to Harry, they would have worked out things like the Horcruxes a lot sooner. They would have worked out that, you know, how to defeat Voldemort before he even came back this time. Like, I feel like they probably could have defeated Voldemort in book 1 if they had really just discussed everything, but like as it was.
Yeah.
I feel like they certainly would have figured out the Barty Crouch on the Marauders map thing.
Yeah, like, how did... Yeah, it's like, that should have been a... And why Peter Pettigrew was never on the map?
Yeah.
Like, he was in the school every single year, and no one picked up that Peter Pettigrew was just wandering around. Like, everyone knew that that was the person that died. Like, he was killed by Sirius in this giant explosion.
Harry's described when he first gets the Marauders map of just sitting and staring at and watching people do things. He never noticed that Peter Pettigrew was in the same room as him?
Yeah. Or never noticed that, like, you know, never noticed that Barty Crouch Jr. was wandering around the school and Mad-Eye Moody was not anywhere to be seen. You know what I mean? Like, he should have been seen somewhere in the thing. Or didn't notice that Sirius was on the map at any point. Because Sirius was... I suppose Sirius wasn't really in the building as so much as on Hogwarts land.
Well, he wasn't even...
By the time Sirius was in the school, Lupin had the map anyway.
Yeah.
True.
And Sirius, remember, he was mostly staying in the Shrieking Shack, which was outside of the school bounds, so he was definitely... Yeah.
Well, I feel like the map was only for inside the buildings anyway. Like, it didn't really show anything outside.
I think the thing is with the map is that it's one of those things that gives us clues as readers, but that don't make sense to Harry or his friends at the particular time. They're there to make the ending go, whoa, yeah, look at those dots connect. That's it. Hello, little Miss Grunty. Hello, Grunty girl.
Yeah, I think that's why this book feels like so much filler, because we know where it's going to end, and we know that it could end a lot quicker if people just, you know, talked to one another and had a discussion.
Yeah.
Or if we didn't have the Quidditch Cup that really serves no purpose other than to introduce a bunch of characters. Or if, you know, we didn't have a whole bunch of months in between announcing the Triwizard Tournament and Do You Mind? And having the actual schools turning up. And if there wasn't months and months in between each of the tasks to begin with.
Yeah.
I think this might be something we're going to experience more as we go along anyway, like that this might continue to happen as the books get longer.
Except that the crux of Order of the Phoenix is, like, the Voldemort part of this book is, like, a very small, like, it's only 50-odd pages, whereas the end of Order of the Phoenix is quite a large chunk of the book.
Yeah, okay, fair point. And there is a lot that happens in that year with Bitchface and the DA and all of that sort of stuff. So this one, I think, even feels like there's not even that much time spent actually Harry getting ready for things, like for his events and stuff like that.
Yeah, I feel like
you spend so much time saying, yeah, I'm fine, yeah, I'm fine, yeah, I'm fine, oh shit.
Yeah, it's very, like, just time sort of seems to cut a lot. For a book that's this large, it doesn't feel like an entire school year.
Yeah.
Like,
it feels, actually, you know what? Maybe we need to give some credit to J.K. Rowling. This is the first time she wrote a really longer story, and she was trying to expand how she was writing. And up until this point, she wrote quite condensed stories, as evidenced by the first 3 books. Perhaps we need to give her a break for this being her first time that she really tried to flesh things out. And maybe it didn't go as well as it could have.
Yeah, that's true too.
That's true, yeah.
But Order of the Phoenix, I mean, I may be saying this prematurely because we haven't reread it yet, but I remember it feeling more cohesive than this.
Yeah.
But again, this was her first sort of opportunity to write a larger book.
But that's a big jump to make between your first larger book and your second larger book. Usually authors go the other way. They write a great larger book and then a shitty larger book.
I'm actually going to have to start wrapping up because once again I have to get up at 5:30 in the morning, and I still didn't get enough sleep last night.
Yeah, I've got work to do in the morning.
I was going to mention, we were talking about not doing the last 2 books all in one hangout, but I'm sort of concerned about where to put it and that sort of thing. I was thinking if we did it all in the same month but we did it 2 weeks apart, would that work for you guys, do you think?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay, so I think it's November. I'll have to double check, but I think it's November. So I'll put. So this like our hangouts are usually mid-month like this. So I'll put the second book towards the end of November. And since December's comics, it shouldn't really get in the way that much of anything else.
Yeah,
because the concern isn't getting it read. The concern is not being able to discuss it properly in the hangout.
Especially being the last book in particular, I think that there's going to be a lot to talk about.
Well, I mean, Karina and I were saying last night that trying to discuss 3 books, even 3 shorter books, we didn't really touch on book 3 very much, like comparatively to the amount that we talked about Philosopher's Stone and Chamber of Secrets. Like, we didn't really talk about Prisoner of Azkaban all that much.
Yeah. Well, at the time when I planned it out, it was more about getting as many people in and not taking up too much of the year with one series. I was already giving more of this year to this series than I usually do, because we usually only do 3 months for the series reads. So we're already having 4 months for it, and I was like, I don't want to take away too much from that. It's a bit of a tricky thing to sort of judge, because if you dedicate too much time to a series but people aren't reading the series, then they've got nothing to come to.
Yeah. Well, that's the other reason. that's the other reason why I started setting up these chat meetings. Because then we can sort of chat about books we've been reading that aren't necessarily books that we're reading for the book club.
Yeah. Hey, I'm going to have a whole month of that. It's going to be amazing. I'm going to read so many books that are not on any book list. Vaginal Fantasy and Sword and Laser are not allowed to pick a book that I want to read because I'm reading no book club books in June. As long as they don't pick something I really want to read.
I think you'll probably be fine for Vaginal Fantasy, but I worry about Sword and Laser.
Actually, I'm worried about Sword and Laser too because they keep picking books at the moment that I actually do want to read. I've got to go back and read so many of them this year. I haven't read Radiance. I haven't read Aurora, this month's one I wanted to read, and I haven't read the 5th season either yet. And I'm like, I want to read them all.
Well, you have all of June to do that.
Oh, no. I've got so many books on my shelves already that I need to read. And I want to read. So, yeah, no, they may not happen then. Although I actually do own the 5th season, so that one might happen. Okay. All right.
Anyway, thank you very much for tonight, everyone.
Agree. And, hey, guys, I think we stayed reasonably on target.
We did really
actually.
well tonight. I'm going to give us all a really good pat on the back. We did really well tonight.
Yeah.
Especially given that it ended up being the 3 of us.
Yeah.
Although it probably helped that I opened up SparkNotes, so I was just sort of flicking through different topics, and I'm like, okay, guys, what about this? What do we think? Keep us on topic.
That's funny. I was thinking about doing that, and then I was like, I'll just flick through the book.
See, I usually
always
try
think,
to
I'll
write
just
down
flick through the
questions.
book.
I try to write down questions, and I listen to the What's the Name podcast normally beforehand, but last time I felt like I got way too academic about it. I'm like, pull it back.
Yeah, that was how I was trying to help us keep on topic a bit more. Just because I knew there was a lot to try and get through.
It probably is half the time when we do this, there isn't anybody who's got those sorts of prompting questions or anything. Like, I've looked for them. You've got to come up with them yourself.
Oh, yeah, no, it wasn't so much prompting questions. I was just sort of flicking, reading, scanning through the overview of the book, so I could sort of pick topics as I went through and went, oh, well, what do we think about this? And so that might be a good way to do it from, if we're trying to sort of at least make sure we do cover the whole book, so we don't have a, position where we had last time where we kind of did not discuss Order of the Phoenix, Prisoner of Azkaban at all. Even a little bit, kind of.
I'm feeling like this is a sore point and we need to go back to Prisoner of Azkaban.
I really enjoy that book.
Last night, actually.
Oh, good. I won't feel
and then
bad about
Karina
it.
yelled at me for talking about Harry Potter. She's like, no, this is for tomorrow night, Naomi.
Only when we started talking about Goblet of Fire, I was fine talking about the other 3. It was just when we started talking about Goblet of Fire and I was like, oh no, that's what we're meant to talk about tomorrow. We'll exhaust our topic conversations.
Thank you for not doing that when I wasn't there.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, it's just us. What if it's just us tomorrow, too?
It was just the 3 of us. I'm still in shock. We had over 10 people supposed to come to the first one.
I know we were having a panic about how we were going to fit everyone in and were we going to have 2 different ones and how would that run and everything, and now there's 3 of us. Yeah, I'm very surprised that even Liv didn't show up.
Yeah. Well, she did say she's got a lot of work going on for uni at the moment, so...
Yeah.
It just seems like people don't want to do it unless they've actually reread the book. That seems to be what's going on.
I didn't finish it.
Neither did I, but I would have come even if I hadn't started it, so...
Oh, yeah.
But then again, I also came to Sarah's hangout the other night for her book, and I hadn't read that either.
Yeah, I'm sorry I piked out on that. I hadn't read the book, and I felt really bad about it, but I was like, if I go and I haven't read the book, I'm just going to be sitting there having not read the book, and I'm not really going to be able to contribute, so...
Isn't that funny? I didn't read it either.
I didn't read it, and only one person did. Kim read it, and so Sarah only had one person to talk to. I felt so bad, so that's why I hung around.
I'm sorry, Sarah. I feel bad now. Mel frozen for you too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh dear.
I'm like, is it just me or is she
No.
frozen? Okay.
And then I was like, is Naomi stuck too? Is this me? Is this a me problem? It seems like, oh nope, there she goes. Oh, is she back?
Looks like she's back.
Woohoo.
Yay!
That was quick.
The funny thing is that you guys just suddenly came through saying stuff, and I'm like, you were talking while I was gone.
Just
We're
like
talking about you.
well, we were talking about, is it me? Is it you? Is it who's frozen? Like, because I didn't move for a second, and so Karina thought it was her, and I thought maybe it was just me. Like I thought. So yeah, I was like, hello, hello.
I don't think it was a proper freeze. I think it was more like a lag, because I got like a gap with nothing, and I was like, uh-oh. And then you guys started talking again, and I was like, oh, yeah, okay, so we're still talking. It's all good. And then suddenly you're saying, is it me? Is it her? And I'm like, what's happened? Anyway, I'm going to bed. Good night, ladies.
Okay. Have a nice sleep.
Thank you. Have a good day at work tomorrow. Surprise work.
Oh, I bet it's going to be surprise work. I hate surprise work.
Surprise work is definitely the worst work.
It just means I can't do my run. Makes me very sad.
Oh, that's not good. And good luck with whatever work you're having, Karina.
Yeah, I have 3 tutoring students tomorrow.
During the day?
So I like to get up nice and early and do all the planning for them. And then I have them from 3:30 till 7-ish.
Okay, that makes more sense. All right. Well, hopefully it goes very nice for you.
Yes.
I'll see you guys in probably about 3 weeks, I think, maybe 4 weeks, depending. I can't remember when you scheduled it, Naomi. But anyway, I'll see you there.
I think it's about 3 weeks.
Okay. All right.
Good night.
Bye-bye.